So I am currently fighting a cold, so I may sound a bit low energy and nasalier than usual, but we got to talk about the day before, which I expected it to be a massive disaster, but I mean, this somehow exceeded my expectations. So this is a game that was marketed for years now, and what initial footage they showed looked mighty impressive, and it was advertised as this open world MMO survival game, almost like Last of Us meets The Division type of situation with zombies and whatnot. And it definitely looked cool, and it attracted a lot of attention, but then people noticed the delays and the fact that there was just a lack of gameplay showcases, and then there was the whole situation where copyright issues delist the game, and eventually people started to pick up signs that this might all be a scam and that the developers really have no idea what they're doing here. Now, the fact that a game shipped at all is kind of a miracle. People thought that this game and the development studio, Fantastic, would just kind of disappear and then act like, nothing ever happened, kind of like abandoned. But a game did launch on December 7th, 2023. But as you can see right here, the audience reception is less than stellar, which is what was expected. It's currently sitting at an overwhelmingly negative review score of 19% from 17,702 reviews. It is advertised as a post-apocalyptic open-world MMO survival. But what people very quickly found was that this was actually just a really ill-conceived extraction shooter. It's really not at all what was initially promised, and in fact, you can already see if you look at, say, Fantastic's YouTube channel and their official marketing material, they've removed all of those initial trailers as a means to try to hide the fact that they engaged in false marketing. And it's not even like a decent extraction shooter, it is just a completely broken and dysfunctional game that does not qualify as a product you can charge money for. If you look at the reviews, you can see plenty of people criticizing how buggy this game is, the fact that it's nothing like how the trailers showcased it, plenty of people highlighting that this game is essentially a huge asset flip, and there are plenty of links here. Well, I mean, the links have been removed for some reason, but there's somebody who straight up highlighted where all the numerous assets you can see in the game came from and where you can purchase those assets. So that certainly doesn't help the universally negative optics surrounding this game. So disastrous was this launch that only 4 days after its release, after its December 7th launch, on December 11th, 2023, this development studio, Fantastic, announced that they'd be shutting down. I'm not kidding. So here's what that statement reads like. Today we announced the closure of Fantastic Studio. Unfortunately, the day before has failed financially and we lack the funds to continue. All income received is being used to pay off debts to our partners. We invested all our efforts, resources, and man-hours into the development of the day before, which was our first huge game. We really wanted to release new patches to reveal the full potential of the game. I'm sorry, but what potential? This game is the equivalent of somebody taking frozen pizza and sticking it into an oven that hasn't even been preheated. To call this game underbaked would be too much of a compliment. They don't even have a proper exoskeleton of a game to build off of, really. Unless they dedicated years and years to actually making this a functional product, there's no way that even with patches, this game would live up to its full potential when it really had none. They continue, but unfortunately, we don't have the funding to continue the work. It's important to note that we didn't take any money from the public during the development of the day before. There were no pre-orders or crowdfunding campaigns. We worked tirelessly for 5 years, pouring our blood, sweat, and tears into the game. Is that supposed to make this whole situation better? You still decided to release marketing material that way overinflated the quality of this game. You still decided to deceive people, and you sold what has no right to be sold for money, all while riding on the marketing hype that you generated, the marketing hype that was nowhere near representative of the final product, and to call it a product is too generous. They continue. At the moment, the future of the day before and prop night is unknown, but the servers will remain operational. We apologize we didn't meet your expectations. That's putting it lightly. We did everything within our power, but unfortunately, we miscalculated our capabilities and actively deceived. Creating games is an incredibly challenging endeavor, and yet no one with an ounce of pride or morality would ship the day before, would ship a game in that state, charge $40 or any amount of money for that matter, and then act like any semblance of sympathy from the public is deserved. They conclude with, "We're grateful to everyone who supported us during these difficult years. It's been a fantastic journey over the past 8 years, and here are all of the games that they released, including 2023's The Day Before." And it's not just that the development studio shut down 4 days after The Day Before's launch. The game can also no longer be purchased on Steam as of that day. So here's what The Day Before's listing on Steam looked like at launch. And the only reason I have this is because I haven't refreshed this page, but you can see right here you could purchase it for $40. But looking at the refreshed version of this listing, you can see right here that the game can no longer be bought. The buy option has disappeared completely. People are surprised that The Day Before launched at all, but now everyone's thinking it would have been better if The Day Before had never launched in the first place. Now, the publisher of The Day Before, Mitona, has come out with their own statement in which they said that they are working towards issuing refunds, stating, quote, "To all The Day Before players, as the investor of The Day Before, we would like to provide some updates on the current situation around the game. We are sorry for the fact that the game didn't meet the expectations of the majority of the players." You mean of all the players. And stop with this whole "didn't meet the expectations." Stop trying to soften the blow. It didn't meet even the most basic of quality standards. Today, we will work with Steam to open up refunds for any players who chose to make a refund. We're in contact with Fantastic regarding the future of the game. What future? The studio shut down. You can't buy the game. The player numbers are diminishing very rapidly. There is no hope here. Not like anyone would care to see what the future holds for this game. It's burned far too many bridges with its deceptive practices. Fantastic also issued a statement in which they assured that they're going to work towards issuing refunds, tweeting, quote, "Answer to those who ask for a refund, Mitona, and we're currently working with Steam to allow refunds for any player who chooses to request one, regardless of game time. Fantastic received $0 and will receive nothing from The Day Before sales. So at the very least, if you did spend money on this game, you'll be able to get that money back, unless this is also some kind of deception." But more of a highlight is a tweet below this one where Fantastic responded to somebody who tweeted, "Unbelievable that you guys hype this game so much, and this is the end result. You guys are an absolute disgrace to the video game industry." Fantastic responded, and I kid you not, with this. "This was our first big experience. Shit happens." Ah, yes, you know that classic situation where the first trailer of a game looks so utterly freaking amazing and like a completely different genre to what the final product ends up being. That classic scenario where a live service and its development studio literally die 4 days after launch as a result of deception and a complete lack of quality assurance or complete lack of care of shipping anything resembling an actual proper video game. Now, we are seeing people report that they are getting refunds. So here's somebody who played 14.5 hours of the game, somehow endured that much playtime with this title and still managed to get a refund. But that doesn't really make the scenario any better. Fantastic and Mitona doing the bare minimum of what they should do in this situation for restitution does not put them in good graces all of a sudden. It's just the bare minimum what they're doing. A few more things worth noting. The Day Before has made it to the Hall of Shame listing of the worst reviewed games on Steam. It is among the top 10 currently. And then beyond that, if you look at the player count of this game, you'll find that it has very quickly plummeted from an all-time peak of 30,000 players to now a 24-hour peak of less than 3,000 players. And as of an hour ago, only 855 players. And then here is SteamDB. Their numbers are a little different, but relatively in line with what we're seeing here. I don't know which one's more accurate, but looking at both, in the case of SteamDB, we're looking at 38,000 all-time peak players and now 24-hour peak of 3,416 players. And those playing right now, we're looking at 792 players. Not great stats. This game is very quickly plummeting into irrelevance. And that's in large part because so many customers are refunding this game. Here's Twitter user Simon Carlos, who noted that a lot of people have been refunding this title. It's had 201,000 buyers and 91,700 refunders, a 46% refund rate. And this is as of yesterday, December 11th, 2023. Who knows what that stat will look like today or days from now. We're talking about millions of dollars worth of refunds here. This kind of refund rate is frankly unprecedented. As for how the game's critical reception is faring, well, we have some reviews here on Metacritic. We have IGN, who actually scored the game based on its early access status. And apparently, according to Ryan McCaffrey here, this is the first time in about a decade that IGN has given a game a 1 out of 10. That honor goes to The Day Before. As you can see right here, They gave it a review score of 1, labeled unbearable. The Day Before is easily one of the worst games I've ever played, to the point where I'm afraid to continue running it on my PC, and if you didn't manage to try it yourself, you can probably count yourself as one of the lucky ones. You can find their more extensive verdict on the article proper, which reads, its map is lifeless, its enemies are idiotic, its PvP is an explodable mess, its story is pointless, and its progression is downright infuriating. While the now defunct developer Fantastic said it wasn't done, certain baseline standards have been established in the years since early access became a thing, and this game met none of them. I mean, just looking at some of the gameplay footage that outlets like IGN posted, so this is like an in-game cutscene that plays during the intro portion of the game, and already you're looking at shit like this where a bunch of player characters are jumbled up together, and it's already like a hilarious mess. Beyond that, you've got Twitch clips like these that highlight some of the more hilarious bugs that you can find in The Day Before. The one redeeming quality of The Day Before is that some of the bugs might make you laugh. That's the only aspect of this game that might bring about some semblance of entertainment. But then there are other bugs that are full-on frustrating or game-breaking, like this one right here, where players just can phase through walls and get stuck behind environments or fall through the world. Yeah, I've seen this pretty frequently across numerous players. Here's somebody else who encountered the same hilarious bug of NPCs that just grow into giants. This player actually shot the NPC and this happened. So, again, the game might make you laugh from time to time. That might be the only reason why it's why it's a 1 out of 10 instead of a 0 out of 10. Here's somebody else falling through the map while watching a cutscene, an in-game cutscene. Look at that. Like, they didn't do anything. There was no interaction involved. They just let the game do its thing, and it automatically saw the player fall through the world. Again, completely dysfunctional. And then for many players, it was impossible to get in because of server issues or because servers would often be full. So right here, for example, Spawnwave tweeted, the day before launch and the servers are apparently getting crushed. Can't start the game at all. Though that may be its own form of mercy. We have plenty of articles like this one from Rock, Paper, Shotgun that's compiling quotes from people who have been sharing the issues that they've experienced with this title. No open world survival elements. It's just an extraction shooter, and a bad one at that. The supposedly expansive and dynamic world feels empty, lifeless, and riddled with uninspired design. The gameplay lacks the depth and complexity suggested by the trailers, leaving players with a shallow and repetitive experience. There's no vaulting, no directional audio, making it impossible to tell where you're being shot from. So if another player is trying to take you down, you don't know where they're coming from, if they're camping out and stuff like that. So you'll just die out of the blue. No melee, which is insane for a game that's, about survival and where ammo conservation is paramount. The fact that you have no other option, like no melee option, is insane. This game does not even have functioning settings. Try changing resolution, I dare you. Killed like 10 people, 9 of them disappeared in 10 seconds, couldn't even loot them. Here's another article from Polygon, also compiling what users and players have been saying about this game, namely that it's full of bugs, crashes, poor performance, and multiplayer server issues, no melee weapons, no vaulting over, or the ability to climb ladders. The day before promised explorable buildings, but players have pointed out that very few of them can actually be entered. It is also apparent that the day before took shortcuts by using AI instead of artists to make things like in-game ads. The day before appears to be using AI-generated voices and scripts, but the bizarre in-game adverts are so bad, they're somehow good. So aside from it being an asset flip, it couldn't even bother to hire proper artists to really flesh out the world. Instead, they relied on just very soulless AI to make things that people immediately noticed this was clearly made by AI. Right here we have a video review of the day before from GameRanks that highlights just how dumb the enemy AI is. I mean, look at this zombie just completely failing to walk into a pretty open door. You can see stutters here and there highlighting the performance issues. You can see how dumb the enemy AI is, where you don't really even have to try to evade the zombies. You can just kind of stroll backwards and they won't know what to do. Even when they catch up to you, you can see just how janky and broken everything looks. The gunplay itself is utter garbage because the reaction time, I mean, aside from just the general lack of a sense of impact. You can see right here, zombies reacting a second after they get shot. You can see, boom. It takes a second before the zombie actually staggers backwards. So, I mean, it's terrible, just across the board. Beyond that, useless features like the ability to, like, add furniture to your own custom cabin or whatever. Like, but this is just a money sink that has no real purpose. The city itself, at times it has a sense of scale, but the reality is that the map itself is actually pretty small, and there's really nothing to do. You rarely encounter other players. You rarely encounter zombies, even. All you're doing really is walking around. It's almost like a procedurally generated Starfield planet, except even worse, somehow, where it's just barren and empty. No activities, nothing interesting to encounter, no dangers abound, really. And when you do encounter those dangers, the AI is so piss poor that it doesn't really feel dangerous. The story, the characters, all that stuff's just completely boring, irrelevant, just lacking in any semblance of intrigue. And yeah, I mean, even GameRanks encountered this bug that, again, is hilarious. But then you look at some of the more game-breaking bugs, and that's when things get out of hand. So right here we have a situation where the player accidentally clipped through an environment and got stuck inside, and basically would have remained stuck there because when you reload the game, if you try to exit and come back, you are spawned into the same location. So the only way they could get out of this was by just kind of finagling things enough where they could actually get killed by a zombie and respawn somewhere else. Otherwise, they would have just been stuck there and would have had to make a new character. So yeah, just a lot of like literally game-breaking bugs where it completely impedes your progress or your ability to play the game. There was a showcase right here of a lack of basic features like vaulting. So you can see right here, trying to jump even the smallest of ledges is impossible. So navigation is a pain in the ass. You often get stuck, and just traversal itself is just awful. Water just straight up kills you, which is something the game never teaches you. For some reason, it just kills you. Oh, here we have clips of this player loading into the game only to find that the resolution is all off for some reason, and then when they did manage to correct that and find a server they could log into, the first thing that happened was they phased through the open world and just got spawned in, falling in an endless abyss of nothing. As for what the community discourse is like surrounding this game, well, let's take a look at the Discord here for the game, which is on fire. People spamming that it's a scam. People just trying to have what fun they can have with this complete shit show. Now, where things get even more egregious is the way Fantastic and its CEO are trying to essentially try to hide the evidence, going to hiding, and take no responsibility or accountability whatsoever. So Nick Calandra here, for example, pointed out that if you needed any more indication the day before is a scam, the CEO of Fantastic has nuked himself from Twitter, and not just from Twitter, but also from LinkedIn. And then beyond that, Nick noticed that they've completely wiped their YouTube channel, where they put up a bunch of false marketing for the game, all of those trailers that showed a much better, essentially fake vertical slice footage. The website has been nuked as well. This is all you'll find now, the statement that they provided. But aside from trying to nuke all evidence, they're also trying to rebrand and be deceptive once more. As noticed by Twitter user Connor here, Fantastic is trying to hide its identity by rebranding to 8 points for the game The Wild 8. It's getting slammed with negative reviews, warning people that the game was released by scam artists. And you can actually see this for yourself if you go to SteamDB, where it shows the history of Fantastic changing its name to 8 points. And if you go to Steam right now, you can see that there's this game called The Wild 8 that was made by developer 8 points, which is in reality Fantastic. It's them just trying to hide the fact that they are the now infamous, notorious, and disgraced company that engaged in some of the most shameless false marketing we've ever seen and launched one of the most shameless products in gaming history. But people are not letting this slide, which is why recent reviews for this game have been mostly negative, warning people that this is Fantastic, that these are essentially scam artists, and to not support any of their products. So yeah, as far as recent developments surrounding the day before, that's everything you need to know. Now, if you want to know everything leading up to the launch of The Day Before, I made this video titled The Bizarre Case of The Day Before and Why the Internet Thinks It's a Scam, published back in March of 2023, where I highlighted articles like this one where the development studio behind The Day Before insisted that they're not a scam, that aged like milk sitting in a car on a hot summer day. In that video, I also highlight all the different trailers that were released throughout the course of The Day Before's development cycle. Fortunately, because these have been uploaded elsewhere, Fantastic can't just hide the evidence. You can see right here that the announcement trailer for this game looked frickin' gorgeous. I mean, this looked like a game one would want to play if it actually existed. The gameplay, the visuals, everything, the atmosphere looked far superior to what we got in the final game. But of course, this was just fake bullshit. This is nowhere close to what we ended up getting. And throughout the course of, 2 years or whatever, we got tons of gameplay that was not representative of the final product at all. Stuff that looked pretty cool, pretty interesting, ambitious, and, people are always willing to give up-and-coming studios and indie developers a chance. Here we have a trailer involving a mall. I don't think any of this made it into the final game. I remember how impressed people were at the scale of this interior space and the visual fidelity of all this. Jesus Christ, they really duped everyone, didn't they? And then NVIDIA did RTX on videos based on The Day Before. The amount of marketing that this game got is actually insane, especially from major outlets like IGN. But things started to take a turn for the worse roughly 10 months ago when a new gameplay footage showed a gameplay representation that was far inferior to what we had seen months and years back. And this gameplay right here showed just very little in the way of like zombie shooting gameplay, and you can see right here the likes to dislikes ratio took a turn for the worse. Before people, started to get a bad feeling about all this and began to sense that this game was likely not going to live up to expectations. I mean, you can see just what a vast difference there is between the 2021 announcement trailer and the 2023 gameplay footage. And even between the 2023 gameplay footage and what we got now, it is still a night and day difference. Every year, it just degraded significantly in terms of visual quality and just gameplay, everything. Every aspect of this game just degraded over the course of its development years. And then came the delays. People were initially understanding when they announced that the game would be delayed to shift to Unreal Engine 5 and stuff like that. But as the delays continued throughout the course of 2022 and then into 2023, impatience began to permeate. And then beyond that, there were shady elements like how they were calling for volunteers to help with the project, which is not only extremely exploitative, like labor-wise, it's just morally rather questionable, but also it called into question the experience of these developers if they needed volunteers to make this game work. At that point, people were wondering whether this is a development studio and a game that could be trusted to live up to the high quality that the initial trailers seemed to show. And then came the whole situation where The Day Before was delisted from Steam. Initially, Fantastic said that it was a bug, but then they put out a statement where they said that it was a copyright issue because of a calendar app with the same name. And that actually turned out to be true. There's this calendar app called The Day Before. But beyond this being a major oversight, the fact that the game so shortly before its originally intended release date was delayed by an additional 9 months, this raised all kinds of red flags. It was delayed from March of 2023 to November 2023, and it ultimately ended up coming out in December of 2023. It didn't help matters that around that time, The Day Before's lead Discord mod said that because they hadn't seen any gameplay, they don't even really know for sure if the game is real. The lead mod of the Discord was questioning the reality of this game. And amidst this whole situation where people were now questioning Fantastic's competence or whether any of their endeavors were even real, they had the audacity to come out and say that we all live in a time of disinformation and lack of fact-checking. This coming from the studio who engaged in one of the worst false marketing campaigns that gaming has ever seen. Disinformation needs to be dealt with. Don't disagree with you there, Fantastic, but also have you tried looking at yourself in the mirror? They even went out of their way to speak to news outlets like IGN, insisting that the 9-month delay was planned before the Day Before calendar app trademark dispute, and just insisted that this was not a scam. They decried claims that it's a scam. It didn't help matters that people began to notice that the day before, in its trailers and its marketing material, hell, even in its logo and its, box art or title art, they were essentially ripping off other people's work. So the trailer here, official 10 minutes gameplay trailer for the day before, for example, features a shot that's pretty much identical to that of Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Plenty of stuff pulled from Last of Us, namely the key visual for the game's title art. And eventually we started to see major news outlets like IGN just kind of document the strange saga of the day before. And there are plenty of YouTubers like Force Gaming here who has followed this whole situation quite extensively. With Force Gaming in particular, noting how the folks at Fantastic would often, when they advertised the day before, they would also try to shoehorn in marketing for their other games like Prop Night here. So the speculation was that the day before didn't actually exist, that it was a scam mainly intended to get people hyped so to tune into any sort of marketing elements of the day before. And while people were tuned in, they could shove in a promotion for their other games like Prop Night to try to get sales of those titles to increase. That was a speculation, but ultimately the day before was a real product, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a scam. But at least we can now bring this whole saga to a close. Plenty of people were just wondering, what the hell is this the day before thing? And is it ever going to launch? And, but now we can actually put a bow on it. We know this now to be one of the greatest scams and disasters in gaming history. And the way this all played out, from the game's launch to a 4-day period after which the studio got shut down, the game is no longer accessible for purchase, and it's on its way to essentially burying itself 6 feet under. Even by games industry standards, this is a rather unprecedented and unique situation that is worth documenting and worth learning from. Next time something seems too good to be true and red flags rise up like this, the way it did for the day before, we should be rightfully apprehensive and trust our instincts when they tell us that something's not right about this. Or at least that's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on this whole the day before situation. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.